ASEAN Dailies. First and the foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Good morning, this is Arlene.
Hi, this is Gowri.
And you are with us on our ASEAN Daily. It's a very beautiful Tuesday morning. And we would like to share with you all the important news from Southeast Asia. Let's start with Malaysia. Gowri, what is happening in Malaysia right now?
A lot of things are happening in Malaysia, but I think what really stood out was Mahathir, our former Prime Minister, Mahathir Mohamad's comments on 1MDB. And he has apparently urged a prompt end to 1MDB scandal. And he has openly called for our current Prime Minister Najib Razak to resign over allegations of corruption of the 1MDB in a rare public display of unity. Mahathir and Deputy Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin, who recently got sacked, called for a news conference to express their concerns. And at this news conference, also present were Party Vice President Shafi Abdal, who was also sacked as a minister, as well as party elders Tengku Razaleigh Hamzah and Sanusi Junid. Look like all these sacked people coming together.
That's true.
Trying to form a voice.
Yeah, and what we are seeing right now is definitely some internal fightings between UMNO members, especially between the senior UMNO members with Najib. A former senior member of UMNO, Khairuddin Hassan, and his lawyer, Matthias Chang, were formally charged on Monday with attempts to, quote-unquote, sabotage Malaysia's banking and financial system. And Mahathir and other UMNO leaders are calling for the two to be released.
I think there are two interesting things to look at here. One is the fact that they're calling for our Prime Minister to resign, which is sort of what everyone has been commenting on social media as well, and also about how the whole country is sort of just going down at the moment with the fall of the ringgit, with all the toll prices rising.
To be fair, our ringgit did climb a bit up
like
against the greenback.
Yeah, that's true. But what makes it even more interesting is it's coming from our former Prime Minister, Mahathir Mohamad, who, as much as is being very vocal these days, I think a lot of people still don't understand why he's the one who is coming forward and saying all these things.
I totally agree with you. I think the problem here is you have a former, I won't say a dictator, but a former authoritarian leader who has done his equal share of dirty politics, is calling for Najib to resign, and saying that Najib is using dirty politics to expand his power. But I feel that it's kind of like not right.
It's kind of like the kettle calling the pot black, pot calling the kettle black. But yeah, I think even during back in Mahathir's time, there were equally very controversial scandals, and also a lot of suppression of the opposition side. And but I think I don't know if he has grown out of all that and he's trying to approach things in a different way now, or he's just trying to turn over a new leaf and trying to speak the voice of Malaysians right now.
I also do not know about it, but one thing for sure, I think the best way for any politics to be considered democratic, or to have democracy in our politics, is to have the people to speak out against any corrupt leaders, or any leaders who, is not being fair to the people.
Right. And I think also after the toll prices increase just last night, I think, and there's been a lot of outcry on Facebook, and I think with the GST and now with this and the rising prices of so many things, it's really time for our Prime Minister to address this and do something, come up with something that can encourage or convince the people that he is still worth being the Prime Minister of Malaysia.
Yeah, I think a lot of people right now, they are just fed up with Malaysian politics in general. They want things to change for the better, and for any Malaysian leaders, what they can do at least is to make the country better, or like Donald Trump say, make Malaysia great again.
Right.
I know there's a lot of rhetoric there, but I think people need that hope,
That's true.
Yeah.
And wonder who's gonna do that for us.
I wonder so. And moving on from Malaysia to Myanmar. Myanmar, as we all know, they are facing the biggest elections for the last 25 years. And this will be the first free and fair poll, according to the Myanmar government, of course. But unfortunately, one NLD or National League for Democracy nominee, Win Min, he has been prevented from going to the Coco Islands. Oh, I like that name actually. Where the main installation is a naval base, making it almost impossible for him to canvass for the votes in the November 8 poll.
And both the ruling Union Solidarity and Development Party and Aung San Suu Kyi's NLD, National League for Democracy, have fielded candidates on the Coco Islands, which is the country's smallest parliamentary constituency. And this this Coco Islands are restricted area, and transport links are very sparse, and this is why it makes it so difficult for people to go back and forth from this place. And a few military plane actually flies every 2 weeks from Yangon, while a navy ship and a state-owned boat also makes occasional trips. And according to Win-Win, he said, "I believe if they let me go there, I will win."
Yeah, I mean the name is Win-Win, right?
That's true. And he also said that recently he has been racking up a large mobile phone bill, making calls to voters on the sparsely populated island about 300 kilometers away. Must be really hard for him to campaign over the phone.
It is hard. I mean, if you go to Myanmar right now, actually the phone bill is much more expensive than in Malaysia. In Malaysia, you can make calls like almost for nothing if you can have good and if you have good internet access, you can it's free. You can make calls using WhatsApp even. But the thing is, what they are seeing here is dirty politics that is happening right now, because while Win Min from the National League for Democracy Party is not being able to campaign there, his rival Tet Sue, who until August served as a commander-in-chief of the Navy, has been able to campaign freely on the island.
I think this shows that the election will not really be that free and fair, as said by the USDP in Myanmar. I think it's a very important election for them, but at the same time, there are too many expectations and very high hopes, and we do see a bit of cheeky, naughty things happening here and there, especially in terms of candidates from the opposition party who are campaigning for the elections. And what we hope to see is definitely, even if it's not a change, at least a wake-up call for the government in Myanmar.
Just like Malaysia back in 2008, social media will play the central role for any political parties to be able to reach out to the grassroots, and especially to persuade young voters to vote for them. 51 million residents of Myanmar are expected to participate in the general election, and the election represents a step forward for free speech in the country as more residents embrace social media. And what we are seeing right now, a jump from 2% of the population to 35% over the last several years of internet users.
And this also happened after a long shut off from the outside world when it comes to the people of Myanmar. And another first is also the presentation of former political prisoner Nai Phon Lat as the regional candidate for the opposition party National League for Democracy. And I like this whole competition going on where the government comes up with something and NLD sort of retaliates with their own plan, with their own candidates, and it shows that they are really going at it, and we can expect something really interesting when it comes to the outcome of the elections. And I hope all these 51 million people will go out and vote.
Okay, I'm a bit biased here. I mean, although I was a bit saddened the fact that Aung San Suu Kyi was keeping quiet on the issue of Rohingya, but I think I do want NLD to win at least the majority. At least to give a simple, to give a big challenge to the current government of Myanmar, because they are controlling almost everything, even though they may say there is a democracy in Myanmar.
And I think it will also help for them, since they are heading towards a democratic system. It will help if the opposition gains some kind of power or a more substantial position in the country, to show the world that, this is Myanmar and we have the government and we have a healthy opposition who's giving us competition.
And moving to Indonesia, the haze is still out there. I mean, even though it's not as bad as before, it's still very much a nuisance to us.
It is. And what's even more of a nuisance is that it costed Indonesia $47 billion in damages.
And how much did Najib was accused for the 1MDB?
Still less than 47 billion.
This is like worse than 1MDB fiasco, to be honest. An early estimation by the Joko Widodo administration indicates that the haze crisis could actually set Indonesia back to 475 trillion rupiah, or like you said, the 47 billion Sing dollar, actually, not US dollar,
right,
amid a sliding rupiah and sluggish growth.
And the country's global standing will also definitely take a hit if they do not resolve these decade-old issues like we've been mentioning, which is caused mostly by fires in Kalimantan and Sumatra. It's too early to tell what the economic cost of this year's haze episode will be exactly, because the haze is still going on, and it will probably go on until early November due to the El Nino season. And this is according to Professor Kwa from the Nanyang Technological University.
And if you remember 1997, I don't know if you were born yet or not, but
I was 7 years old. But yeah, I think I barely remember what happened back then.
Well, I was still in primary school, but I still remember teachers were distributing the face masks, although right now we know that it doesn't help at all. The face mask, you need like a real actual
N95 mask.
Yes, yes, that's what I call it. But the thing is, at that time, it was already costing Indonesia $9 billion US dollars on the transboundary haze, and now 47 billion Sing dollar. We can see that this definitely will be, something that needs to be solved ASAP. But according to Professor Kwa from Nanyang Technology University, that the cost of the crisis, whether for Indonesia, Singapore or Malaysia, will likely be the same. The difference is probably neighboring countries from Malaysia and Singapore, we will not be that kind to Indonesia, because probably they will lose much of the goodwill that has with its neighbor. That's what they say.
So we're going to lose another 47 billion on top of what we have.
I know. And the good thing is, the Jokowi government has already allocated US dollar 1 million to Sumatra and Kalimantan.
Okay. Yeah. That doesn't seem like much, actually, when we talk about the amount of damages that's been done. Talking about Sumatra and Kalimantan, these are not small constituencies. This is the entire island with a lot of people. And it's probably going to need a bit more than that.
1 million, what is it? Anyway, talking about what needs to be done further is the issue with the South China Sea. But what we are seeing right now is US is meddling its hands in it, and I'm actually quite worrying. The US may soon deploy warships near China's artificial islands in the South China Sea as a message that it does not recognize China's territorial claims over the area.
The U.S. ships will, if they do deploy them, will sail within 12 nautical mile zones that China claims as its territory around the Spratly Islands within the next 2 weeks. Although they are currently waiting for approval from the President, of course, Obama, before taking any action. And the United States actually considers the area around Spratly Islands to be a part of international water space, which is why they think that they have every right to be deploying their ships there.
Reminds me of the movie The Martian.
When he came out and said, "I'm a pirate."
Yeah. And he said that, this is international waters.
Right. But I think this is a very definitely something that we should be worrying about. According to defense analyst Romel Banlo, he also said that should Obama approve the proposal, Philippines should brace for China's strong reaction that may lead to the latter's tougher actions in the disputed area. I mean, it's true. Philippines already has an affiliation with the U.S. and bringing in the military and all in response to what China is doing. And now there's going to be a greater U.S. presence. And according to the analyst here, China could retaliate on Philippines and put the blame on them for bringing the U.S. in.
That's true, and especially if U.S. fail to deter China, which highly likely they will fail because of the way that the geographical area. You can see that China is controlling almost the whole of the South China Sea. The Philippines may suffer the consequences, and I think the Philippines really need China. So in this case, they really need to rethink the way they meddle with with the regional relations between the Philippines and China. We do not want to cause our big brother, I would say, to get angry.
Of course. And also we don't want anything to happen to the Philippines. And they're quite close to us as well.
Definitely. Anyway, we'll take a short break. When we return, we'll talk on the economic side of Southeast Asia.
ASEAN Dailies. First and the foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Good morning, this is Arlene.
Hi, this is Gowri.
And you are at our economic side of the ASEAN Daily. So, of course, the TPP was the hot news for the last 2 weeks. And assessing the impact on ASEAN is important. So, what's the TPP's impact on Southeast Asia?
I think of the ASEAN countries in the TPP, we have Brunei, Malaysia, Singapore, Vietnam, and Vietnam was the big winner according to expert Edmund Sim. And Vietnam, it seems, had already just concluded a free trade agreement with the EU, which would make it the only ASEAN country other than Singapore to have an FTA with Europe. And it's quite impressive to see Vietnam actually coming up, giving a competitive edge to the rest of the ASEAN countries. I mean, they're competing with Singapore in terms of establishing relationship with EU counterparts.
We are seeing Vietnam skyrocketing to the forefront when it comes to signing free trade agreements. They have signed almost all of the free trade agreements available for the Asia, Pacific and the world. And the TPP impact is also significant for the ASEAN countries not in the agreement. Surprisingly, in Indonesia, Thailand and the Philippines will actually feel the pinch or the competitive disadvantage for their exports. They will even feel pressured to complete the regional comprehensive economic partnership talks, which means convincing India and Indonesia to be more flexible at their bargaining position. Right now, as usual, they are like, hey, this is my part, I want it to be this way, so they're still stuck at RCEP talks.
And TPP is also a game changer where they are establishing a lot of rules for the competition in the Asia-Pacific region. And this also demonstrates the U.S. commitment to the region. They're also trying to show that their concerns extend beyond security matters, and it is also supposedly going to force ASEAN members to up their game. But I mean, when we talk about ASEAN itself, we already have the AEC, of course, happening real soon, which is already encouraging most countries to step up their game. And did we really need the TPP to come in and give us more of a boost or a motivation?
Well, it depends on who you're asking. For those who want to, for big businesses especially, having as much free trade agreements as possible would be a boost to their businesses, because when you do business in a foreign country, you need to pay a lot of different taxes and tariffs and all that. And of course, the way a foreign country do business might be a little different than the way you do business. So if you have a sort of standardization and it's of an international standard, you know what you're getting in. It's like going to a foreign country and seeing McDonald's, and
Right.
you know McDonald's will be McDonald's that you
Right.
know back at home, things like that.
Okay, so this is definitely not for the makcik selling nasi lemak. It's
No.
for MNCs.
It's good for big businesses.
Right.
I mean, for the ordinary people and for small businesses, I think this is water that has yet to be tested. We haven't seen how this would impact ordinary people's lives. It could be worse, it could be better. I think an impact study would determine this.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think it's also great that it also probably opens up more opportunities for companies in ASEAN, as much as we're trying to encourage everyone to not only think local but more regional. And I think TPP would definitely help us to think global as well, since there are more opportunities opening up for all these companies.
Yeah. And moving on from TPP to AEC. Well, AEC is a very ambitious project, as much
Yeah.
as TPP is as well. But the problem is, ASEAN has a lack of standard, and it will limit the movement of labor in AEC, and we all know that AEC is expected to feature freer movement of capital, investment, services, and skilled labor within the region of 600 million people. So on paper, 8 groups of professions will enjoy easier access to regional talent, namely engineers, tourist professionals, dentists, architects, surveyors, accountants, nurses, and doctors.
I like the word on paper very much.
That's true.
Very sarcastic in a way, but also subtly saying that we're probably not ready to implement whatever that we have written in the AEC Charter. But according to Mr. Sabe Ali Mohib, who is a Bangkok-based senior economist with the World Bank, he said ASEAN doesn't have an ASEAN standard which is recognized by countries that would allow probably architects from Singapore to come and practice or work with agencies directly. Even though the barriers to enter the country have been reduced, the qualification to meet the accreditation standards is very, very difficult. I think he has a very good point here. Just because you open up doors to people from other countries, that doesn't necessarily mean that they can just come in and immediately find their place. Like, what am I doing here? And what is the expectation? What am I supposed to deliver? And I think this is where the whole issue of ASEAN standard comes into talks.
Actually, you are right about it, especially from what I see, the professions that they open up for freer movement and free access of foreign labor. The problem is, what about non-native speakers? How are they going to cope with, let's say you work in Thailand in a local hospital there where everyone speaks Thai, and you are a non-native Thai speaker. It would be a hassle for you to probably take a year or even maybe 2-3 years off just to master that language before you can start work, and you will lose out a lot in terms of trying to develop your skills. And
I mean, even imagine a surgeon from Myanmar or something who can't speak English. How would he go to Malaysia or Singapore and try to make it work over there? Although he's an expert and he is skilled, but we're still not able to place him or not able to make use of the talent or what he has to offer. And
that's true.
Yeah.
And the irony is that the Thai state has plowed billions of baht in recent years to promote AEC to its people. If you go to Thailand right now, billboards proclaiming the country is ready for the AEC or welcome to AEC are ubiquitous at prominent traffic junctions around the country. Well, I don't see that in Malaysia.
I was just about to say that. And we are the chairman of ASEAN.
I know, right?
I don't see any billboard mentioning anything about AEC. Actually.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to just downtown, talk to the layman like, hey, AEC, it's like, what? I mean, you don't even have to go and talk to the lay person. You just talk to an engineer, doctors, or people of profession that you would expect them to know anything about this region. They would have like, what? They probably know more about TPP than anything else.
Probably, because it's like all over the papers right now. And I think Thailand is doing a great job at it, but at the same time we also need to start working on what is the ASEAN standard and what the people have to expect when they are ready to move to a different country.
Besides labor movement, ASEAN also needs money. In fact, it needs 10.6 trillion ringgit to invest in energy.
Right, and this is to invest in their energy infrastructure in the next 25 years, according to the World Energy Outlook Special Report. The reliability and sustainability of Southeast Asia's energy system depends on investment. I think at the end of the day, it always goes back to investment, because whatever that you put in, and you have to see how much it comes out later, the return on of investment as well. And one of the important things that we're looking at right now is, of course, in terms of energy usage. I think we reported something a few days back as well about how Southeast Asia is trying to make better use of the energy and trying to source for alternatives as well. And because of that, the report also called for increased efforts to reduce subsidies on fossil fuels, citing that the region spent $36 billion on fossil fuel subsidies in 2014, despite reforms in Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand and Myanmar. Now, I'm not too sure about Thailand and Myanmar, but I do know that Indonesia and Malaysia has done a lot to cut down on all these fuel subsidies.
Well, that's true. I mean, this is fossil fuel subsidies. They have cut a lot on it. I mean, we remember if the petrol price that have risen up, because the government wants the market to determine the price of the petrol rather than using subsidies. And I think it's a great move if you're looking at the longer future where you want the renewable energy to replace fossil fuel. But cutting subsidies on petrol is one thing, but there are other areas on fossil fuels that needs to be cut in terms of usage. Do you know that in Southeast Asia, especially Malaysia, we are actually one of the biggest consumer of coal.
Right.
Yeah. And this is also fossil fuels, in on one hand, not necessarily like petroleum and all that.
Yes.
And besides that, Indonesia is also one of the biggest exporter of coal. So that means if Indonesia wants to be seen as a hub for renewable energy, it has to change the way it does business.
That's right. And according to Mr. Asada Mori also, he said the greater integration of the region's energy market could catalyze the development energy resources, facilitate more efficient use of region's resources and enhance energy security. I think this also comes with the AEC, our awareness level, how we are working together with different countries to make it more manageable, or enhancing that whole management of our fossil fuels. And because our demands will definitely increase, like you said, we are one of the biggest users of fossil fuels, and we also of course the demand will be increasing each year, and we don't know where it's going to lead us, say like 10 years from now. And the best thing that we can do is start managing right now and see how we can use alternative sources of energy so we don't deplete all these sources soon enough.
Absolutely, Gowri. Anyway, we'll take a short break. When we return, we'll talk about the socio-cultural side of Southeast Asia.
ASEAN Dailies. First and the foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hey, this is Arlene. You're back with me.
Hi, this is Gowri.
And of course, you are with our Southeast Asia's ASEAN Daily.
That's right. And we're moving on to our arts and culture part of ASEAN. And we have a few things to share. Yes, science.
Well, the reason why I said science, because Thailand and China are working together for a smart ASEAN. Do you know that?
Well, apparently, so last month, actually, China and Thailand agreed to expand their 2013 agreement to cooperate in various fields of science and technology, as well as space technology, remote sensing satellites, solar energy, as well as electric cars. And they have so far planned the first stage, also developed the Thailand's high-speed rail project had apparently gone very well, and the next stage will focus on the development of the Gisda satellite based in Chonburi, which will play a very important role in Thailand's transition to a high-income and high-value economy.
Amazing. And I think they probably were inspired by the movie The Martian or Interstellar, and I think I would want Malaysia to go towards that direction as well. And the director of Gitstar, Arnett Sin Wong, said that navigational technology is the world's most powerful technology trend. It is the key to many innovative technologies and developments such as cloud computing, big data, the sensor web, and smart cities. And do you know that China's navigational system technology is the best in the world? So you can imagine the future would be like be controlled by the Chinese.
And that's why China had to step in The Martian to rescue Matt Damon.
I know, right? Oh my god! Yeah. Now I can see the plot here.
And I think the thing that we can learn here from China is that they do invest a lot in trying to be the best in the world in terms of economy or technology. Although their methods are a bit questionable sometimes, but they have a lot of impressive achievements in the field of science and technology. And I think it's great that they are working together with Thailand in order to exchange resources and skills and expertise as well. So Thailand can also benefit from this.
Yeah. And moving on to another news. You have heard before the KL Fashion Week, but you never heard before of the Laos Fashion Week. And it's actually quite a phenomenon because Laos is a stepping stone to fame, especially when it comes to fashion.
Right, and according to a Filipino designer based in Phnom Penh who founded Armada Asia, he said that he is seeking to broaden his horizons with a show at the Laos Fashion Week, which took place last month. And he said with the exposure that his firm got at the event, Laos Fashion Week affords actually a good opportunity for Southeast Asian designers and Laos as well in particular to compare notes, share ideas, and to discuss about what's happening internationally. And I think it's definitely something new. Laos Fashion Week is not something that we would expect here, but it's great to see them stepping up as well, not just in terms of economic side, but also competing in terms of fashion.
And also it's a chance for people outside of Laos to see what's going on inside Laos. And like Thailand, a lot of people might not realize Laos is renowned for its traditional fabrics, especially silk, which interests Albelo. And I think it's great because when I was in Myanmar and Thailand, I love their silks. And I've never been to Laos before, but I can imagine it is as good in terms of the quality as Myanmar and Thailand.
I think it's what's interesting here is Laos is actually making use of what they have, which one of the things is the traditional fabrics, which makes them special, and they're using that to sort of boost them into the international arena.
And I hope more international designer will take advantage of this and try to use the Lao fabrics and a lot of the Lao culture and platforms as well to somehow create a real fashion avenue for Laos. And moving on from fashion to religion, well, when it comes to Sultan of Brunei, you can expect two things: monarchy and religion. And this time he said that religious education teachers need to tackle social ills.
And he also said this. He has called on religious education teachers to take on the responsibility of countering all these social ills that apparently has been attacking the Bruneians. And he also said that religious education teachers are increasingly important in fending off negative influences that result in social ills, including spiritual and moral illness, and this spiritual and moral illness can be difficult to control as they grow quite fast and require extraordinary capability. Well, he's making it sound like a disease here. I feel like I'm talking about something that needs a medical breakthrough in order to be cured.
Maybe it is. You never know, Gowri.
Right.
Well, so according to His Majesty Sultan Haji Hassan Al Bolkiah Muiz Zaduddin Wal Daulah, he's called on authorities to formulate a career progression scheme for religious education teachers in light of their importance in dealing with moral issues. And this include the capability to verify whether certain methodologies and terms that originated elsewhere go against religion. So I guess certain words are not really religious friendly.
I'm thinking liberalism is one of them.
Or pluralism maybe. I don't know.
But I don't think he should be looking at social problems as an illness that attacks people and cannot be cured. I think it's something that affects every teenager to begin with in the country. And if he wants it to be fixed, he needs to start coming up with some youth programs and not blame it on the religious
I think he's not blaming on them. He's just putting a lot more burden on them to solve the problem. But I think this is a natural cause for a country that is facing globalization. I mean, if you look at Brunei right now, if you think about their economic policy, they are pro any form of free trade agreements, even the TPP. They were one of the early countries to promote it, and you see that globalization is really impacting the Brunei society. And I think for Bruneians, they have always been a conservative society in a way that they are family oriented. They don't really want to change that much in terms of the way their children are being brought up to. They want their children to have a more broader mindset, but not necessarily absorbing other cultures that is not in line with their traditional culture. I think that's the reason why they have this kind of culture shock, I would say.
Right. I agree with you. I think that it's always hard to find a balance. I think even in Malaysia, we had this problem a lot of times when we had our Bahasa Malaysia campaign in school, because everybody was speaking English and the government was freaking out about that. Like, this goes against what Malaysia is about and all. And I think it goes to drawing that line. And also, sometimes it's okay to let the youth go and explore different cultures and all, essentially as long as they don't lose who they really are, whether in terms of identity or religion or how they want to define themselves.
I think if you take examples of South Korea and Japan, I mean, you can incorporate traditional values with modern culture.
Right.
So I think it's a way of balancing it rather than seeing it as a social illness that
needs to be cured. Needs to be treated.
Anyway, we'll take a short break before we go to the next show, which is the 9 o'clock interview.
Right.
Our Durian Hit.
And of course, don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for all the daily updates on podcasts and interviews.
Ciao.